Live. You ready for that?
We are
Hey, good
definitely ready.
morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you all are.
That's right. That's right. Well, everybody, welcome to Winning Fist Bumps. This is Daniel Willems, my co-host and my partner and my friend, and we
Aw.
put the show together because we wanted to have real conversations with real people that are dealing with AI, where they're talking about sales or talking about LinkedIn, and we just wanted to have a place where we could have conversations of like what's really happening. And I think we're gonna have a great conversation today.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah. So Mark Clausen's joining us with IBM, and Mark and I have gotten to know each other over the last year, Mark? 9 months, a
Yeah,
year?
I think so, Brandon. It's been a while. It's been a great relationship. I keep learning from you every day.
Well, and I learn from you every day. That's the best thing, right? Yeah, Mark is, I mean, this is the power of LinkedIn, I think. I consider Mark a very dear friend of mine now. And we've never shaken hands or hugged. It's been on, Zoom meetings, it's been on LinkedIn and, chatting and everything. But, anyways, Mark, welcome to Winning Fist Bumps. And why don't you tell a little bit about yourself and your amazing career at IBM?
I've been in technology since the early 80s. Started trying to sell mainframes for a little company called Sperry Univac that became Unisys. Made my way through a handful of companies that you'd see in my LinkedIn profile, and I've had the privilege of it being at IBM for over 23 years now. I've been in a quota carrying role for the lion's share of that, selling the broad spectrum of IBM products. But now I'm in the global sales enablement, and I lead the global sales performance and strategy team. So we coach IBM's sellers and selling teams on their largest opportunities and help them think about all the dimensions of the value proposition, competitive strategy, and decision-making process and relationships and more, and help them think more deeply about how to collaborate with the clients. So it's really fun. I coach a lot of sellers and leaders about their LinkedIn profiles and how to improve the way they show up authentically, and a lot about deal strategy. So it's a lot of fun and a privilege to be here.
We're excited to have this conversation. Daniel.
Yeah, I wanted to add, as far as with Mark, the first time I just had this conversation with Mark earlier, but the first time I met Mark was through a video that you sent me, Brandon. Was you and Brandon were having, or you and Brandon, you and Mark were having a conversation about what we're doing, kind of the thing that we're built, our software that we're building. And he sent me a message, a personal message, that he really appreciated it and that we were doing good things and big things. And so it's kind of stuck with me. I mean, I think you guys sent me that message probably a year ago, but that's, sending those messages to other people, it really sticks. You might not remember sending those sort of messages, but they definitely do when you send real, personal messages.
Right.
That's really cool. Well, Mark, the topic for today is about coaching B2B sales professionals around AI and authenticity in order to fill their pipeline. You've been in sales a long time. You've seen a lot of different things come and go. How are you talking to the IBM sales network right now? With, I think you said, what, 18,000 sales professionals you get to engage with and coach and help and support. How are you talking to them about what's going on right now? Like, is it as chaos or crazy as it seems, even inside a company like IBM with social and AI and buyer journey changing and all that stuff?
I'd say it's not. And I know that seems odd, but there's a strong sales governance inside of IBM. And there should be, regardless of companies large or small. And so we've got what we call practices, and there's practices of know your client and plan strategically and prospect with impact and execute a stakeholder strategy, or a handful. And from the first time you're a new hire in our global sales school, you learn these.
Mhm.
And you go to school in each one of these domains in terms of how to execute. Nothing is left to chance. And with our our QBRs, the quarterly business reviews. We talk about it in our sales SKOs, the sales kickoffs every quarter. We highlight some of these and try to move those forward. And so we kind of constantly shine a light on global best practices, and they do evolve. Okay, as we add new capabilities or things, and so I think we do it pretty well without it feeling like chaos.
Very cool. And I guess we would expect that from IBM, right?
Yeah. I think if you're in some of the smaller companies, and I've worked for some of the smaller ones, it's not as regimented. Inside of IBM, we have a fairly significant sales enablement team, and we specifically spend time building content to help our sellers become more productive.
Mhm.
If you're in a smaller company, I think it's important to find, I think you build best of breed practices in those domains where you've got some vulnerabilities, and you seek out wise counsel.
Yeah. Well, and I would expect too, and Daniel, please jump in. My sales brain's going down different
That's why I
directions.
didn't want to interrupt. It's like when we talk about tech or AI, I'll jump in. But no,
Yeah.
I'm just enjoying listening to you guys talk.
Great, Phil. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? You have such, I don't know what the right word would be, rigid systems, set practices. How are you managing that with how quickly things are changing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think any company's got their fingers on all of it, but we constantly iterate. So if you think about Prospect with Impact, in the beginning, we were teaching LinkedIn Navigator. And as LinkedIn Navigator has continued to evolve, we hold regular courses on the newer features and capabilities and things to do and how to build lists and so on. Then as I became aware of fist bump, you learn and you start to think about, well, how should we weave in a contact strategy? And then I found that I had sellers that were trying to connect, and they had bad connect methods because they would just reach out and say, "Hey, I want to connect with you," but they didn't follow, they didn't comment, they didn't have good social selling hygiene and methodology. And so I've been teaching that. But worst is most of them have terrible LinkedIn profiles. And so I think everything we do starts with a rock solid LinkedIn profile that is customer centric, customer facing. It's not talking about you as much as it is, how is it of your service and what difference do you make in the role that you're in? And so I guess the short answer is you're constantly evolving. It's a continuous improvement program in every dimension of a selling life cycle.
Yeah.
So to improve now, you're just having them use ChatGPT to come up with a connection message. Is that what you're doing now?
Oh, don't say that.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know how you guys do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe
that's
Watson,
interesting.
perhaps.
Or Watson, sorry.
Yeah. If you go to my profile at the very top in the banner, I've kind of coined, I should trademark it, but it says know, be known, serve, and solve. And what I believe is that you really need to know the customer. They need to know you. You need to build trust. You need to show up with a servant's heart. And then you need to co-create and solve the problem together. And I don't think AI does any of that stuff. Now, you can do research. You can do the rest. But, Brandon, how many conversations have you and I had that built a trusted relationship? I don't think any AI bot can write something that's going to convince you that I'm a good guy worth spending time with. And so I think it's important that we understand how to leverage AI in some significant ways, but also to understand where it doesn't belong.
I just saw my role today in this conversation, and my role is going to be going back and forth between the two of you because Daniel, Mark said something there, and I appreciate it, and I think it's a valid opinion. But I know that you're going to have a different approach to AI and the genuineness of AI. Is that fair?
It's fair, but at the same time, I think a lot of that view, I want to say a lot of that viewpoint, but many times that viewpoint is based on what you see out, what people are using it for and how they're producing content. Yeah. So I think yesterday I was speaking with somebody over LinkedIn and they put a AI comment in there and even told me it was an AI comment. And I said, yeah, I don't even really, I built AI comment tools and I still don't use them And I think that idea is kind of like it's that throw the baby out with the bathwater, like, because somebody uses it for garbage content, we sometimes assume it can't be used for good content, or at least human content. So, and it's still early. It's still early for that. So
Very early.
but I do agree with you for sure. The majority of what's being used, what AI is being used for, is pretty terrible.
Yeah. I had a comment that I woke up to this morning. I logged into LinkedIn and kind of looked, and it was a comment was the account that commented was called AI comment or automated comments powered by AI. That was the name of the account that put a comment in my post. Like,
And at least it was up front.
it was very upfront,
And that was
it was
meaningful and valuable to you.
it was a perfect summary of my post. Right, that's exactly what it summarized the content of my post, and I replied, and I'm also curious to see now what's going to happen. But I replied and I said, "Boo! Please don't comment with your automation tool on my post. I don't want that in my feed. I don't want. I'm now. I know it's a bot. I'm not going to have a conversation with your bot. It is the most inhumane way of treating people." You're like, hey, I'm going to send my bot to go have a conversation with you.
Sure.
Not something I want to do. Well, Mark, let's get back to what you're saying. You talked about their profile, right, as the first place. How are you, if at all, are you leveraging AI? How are you helping them be authentic? Or how are you helping them use that strategically in their pipeline building efforts? And you may not be using AI at all, but just focusing on being authentic. What does that mean right now?
Yeah. I wrote down a list before I got here, and I'm thinking, well, I use Watson X, I use Otter AI, I'm using Humanic, I'm using ChatGPT, Resume Worded. Dolly helps me with some graphics for some of my LinkedIn stuff, LinkedIn Navigator and Zoom, which all have AI integrated into it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 9 different AI solutions that I use almost every day.
Wow.
The question is, what do you need to get done, right? As I'm coaching this LinkedIn profile, which I see as your personal landing page, it's your digital representation of who you are when you're not in front of your customer. And I'm telling my teams, don't try to connect with anybody until you show up well. In fact, I found a graphic yesterday of a guy standing there with a ratty pair of pants and a bad shoe and his toe sticking out of his socks on his left foot and a polished black wingtip dress shoe on the other foot. And it's like, how is it that you're showing up? And I think you have to ask yourself that question, because a lot of times people default to a LinkedIn canned banner that doesn't say anything. It's the scissors and the plant and that stuff. And it's like, stop, don't do that. And I teach them how to leverage Canva to create one that has some meaning. And you look around a little bit and you'll see some great ones. So emulate some of those. I see people with lousy pictures. They're either way, way, way too far away in the dark, or they're way, 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 way too close, or they were at a party and they chopped off their wife. You know, it's like, come on, this is not hard with today's cell phones to do something that matters. I mean, go outside and turn the blur on and get some good pictures or good headlines. Mm-hmm. And so I walk them through every section and teach them what good looks like. And I leverage Resume Worded. It's a tool you can use for free. You can go to more in your profile. You can choose save as a PDF, download it to your hard drive, create a free account at Resume Worded, upload it, and score it on a score of 0 to 100. Most of the people I work with score in the 20s or 30s, and I try to drive them up into the 90s so that they show up more authentic. And they've got to turn the featured section on. They have to publish content that matters based on what they have for sale or their role and who their audience is, who they're trying to serve. Because what you want are executives or whoever your customer is to come in and look at you, and without talking to you, really understand your character, that you've got something to say, that you're authentic, and that you're worth the time to spend time with. And right now, if you follow me, and I hope you do, in my featured section, I'm posting a 12-part series about how to improve your LinkedIn profile. Some video, some text, but I think we've got a significant opportunity to change the way we show up.
Hmm. Daniel, what do you think?
Oh, I'm sorry. I got distracted by there was a question about the authenticity of inside
Hmm.
of AI. Do we want to pull that up? And
Yeah, well,
it's
it
someone
is Larry.
you
It
might
is
know. You
Larry
might know him,
Levine. We can't leave Larry out there hanging.
I
Good
guess.
to see you, Larry. Thanks for
Hey,
popping
Larry.
in with us. Yeah, and Larry, I love that that's your message, and I think you're spot on. It's, how do we leverage? I posted the other day, and it was fun because Mike Weinberg and Jeb Blunt, and I commented around the AI, and I said, we need to use technology to help the person be more effective, but we can't use technology to remove the humanity from the person. And I think for me, that's kind of a guiding principle is how do we use tech to help us be better, faster? Maybe we use AI to help us build rapport with somebody quicker because the AI can go scan and read a bunch of things and say, hey, guess what? You both went to the same college or whatever it may be,
Right, right.
right? Help with that stuff that's faster, but don't automate it where the human being loses their humanity. Because I believe no matter what, I know Larry believes this too, is that humanity is always going to win.
And and the other thing too is I think that everyone has something of substance to say. Like everyone has something. It's just how do you tap into that? How do you get them to say what they have to say? How do you get them to kind of convey that?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Maybe you don't have something to say in a specific subject, like you're not as experienced in it, but you have something to say. So I think it's tapping into that to be able to share that sort of content
Mm-hmm.
specifically. And tapping into that's not that easy for some people. I know for me as an introvert, it can be
Mm-hmm.
sometimes be hard to access that. So
Yeah.
you got to get me
Mark,
talking to get it out.
yeah, Mark, you mentioned with coaching the IBMers about creating content. And I think you said valuable, interesting content. Number one would be what is valuable, interesting content, and number two is how do you get them to produce it? Because I think that's the hardest thing in the world for most people is they think um, I don't have anything really important to say to add to the conversation.
Yeah, great points. And I guess I teach you a couple of things. Number one, IBM's fortunate that we've got a pretty good sized marketing department. And so we create content by brand, and we create content for the length of a Twitter X kind of a post, what you could go put into LinkedIn, and content that you could send directly. Um, I work really hard to make sure that sellers don't just repost stuff that's created by
Thank
marketing.
you.
That is like taking, and I tell them, and I grab this thing, I said, that's like taking a digital brochure and sliding it under their digital door. That shows you've got no eminence, you got no tact, and you don't understand how to be valuable. You have just minimized your value by spamming them with junk mail, just like you stand at the mailbox and throw away. Now, write a couple of paragraphs. If you're going to repost something, write a couple of paragraphs on the front end of it of why it mattered to you, what the value was inside of that, and why it's worth their time. Because then all of a sudden you got some skin in the game. Now, on the other hand, I've got IBMers that are distinguished engineers and product designers and all the rest. If they're a subject matter expert in a domain like artificial intelligence, they should be able to write an article about Watson X and talk about natural language processing or deep learning or unstructured data analysis or why our ethical AI framework matters.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, I mean, you'd have those conversations in front of a client when you're
Right.
there in person. You've got an opportunity, and it doesn't have to be a 20-minute read. It could be a 3-minute snapshot on a topic that all of a sudden you are sharing your eminence, your thought leadership, in this case, why IBM, why this solution, why now, what's the business impact going to be? If you can't write a 3 or 4 minute piece of content, then maybe
Mhm.
you shouldn't be in sales.
Well, so let me ask you that question though, because what is it? Like 98% of people on LinkedIn don't publish content on a regular basis. And I think LinkedIn defines that as at least one or two pieces of content a month.
Right.
So if 98% of people aren't doing it, and guys like us sit around and be like, it's super easy. Where's the disconnect? And Daniel, I'd love to hear what you're building inside of AI to help that. And it's not get rid of the human, but it's help that human get more comfortable and maybe be more efficient. Because I think one of the challenges I've heard with people is I don't have time to create that, which I think is bull. It's the fear of creating the content and publishing it that hurts people. That's the whole reason why public speaking is like the number one fear, right? People are scared not to be in public, but they're scared of what people are going to think or say about the things that they think and say. And I think that's totally pertinent to social. So Daniel, what are some of the things with Fist Bump AIQ and stuff that you're building to help bring that out of people, not help suppress the human?
Yeah. So I think first on that subject of that it takes a lot of time, I think that can be true if you are the kind of person where you're staring at a blank sheet of paper and trying to think what to write about. It can take a lot of time. And then you'll spend an hour to two re-editing this blog post or a LinkedIn post, getting no response. And then you're like, this is a total waste of time. I didn't get any engagement. Why did I waste this 2 hours doing it? And to where, for me, if I'm able to just have a conversation, someone asked me a question about, using AWS or using a new technology, or what kind of trends are you looking at? I can just speak to that. And so that's kind of what we're doing, and what we feel can help write content is just having a conversation. And then once I think I mentioned this on the show before, but I had to speak at a conference, or I got to speak at a conference in October. And in order to do it, I asked AI, ask me 10 questions about this subject. And I just spoke, and I just answered questions, and I recorded it. And then I put that into AI, and it gave me slides. It used my words, summarized them via slide. And so then I didn't have to sit down at a PowerPoint or a Canva or whatever and say, how do I create this? Where do I start? What do I want the topic to be? What are the talking points? Instead, I just answered questions as a human, and then AI used it. So I think that's kind of the bridge that we're trying to cross, and we're getting there, which is just have a conversation with your Daniel bot or whatever, and about a subject, about a question, just talk. I don't feel that it's weird anymore. I've got some people that I've spoke with that are using our product, and they've spent 3 to 4 hours in one day talking with our AI. Kind of got hit with the OpenAI bill that I wasn't prepared for, but just happens sometimes. And so they just talk for 2 to 3 hours, and it was able to create content for them based on those conversations, their voice, their stories, all those sort of things. So that's where I think there's really the bridge between AI and human.
Mark, what do you think about that as a style to help salespeople and executives create content?
If I think it's really terrific, because it gives you a starting point. What do you want me to write? Starting with that blank piece of paper is really tough. I've leveraged ChatGPT to be a thought starter, to give me some ideas. And I've become a little bit of a prompt engineer, because I give it assume you're a 30-year veteran in this field, and I need advice on. And if you were going to give a 20-minute speech or a 600-word article and you write about this, what would the essence of it be? And I think that helps. I think with advanced natural language processing, these AI tools start to understand who you are and how you speak, and your commenting style, right? So that and you can teach it that, so it becomes your voice. And I think there's a great ability to leverage that, but never lose track of the fact that what we don't want is a whole bunch of machines writing content to push out to other machines, because all of a sudden that also loses its authenticity. So as some of this content is created, I think it's important to either spot check or do regular reviews to make sure that that's exactly what you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, and it has to be meaningful. It has to be meaningful, and it has to have high impact. And I think we're going to continue to get better. So the work, Brandon, that you and Daniel are doing together, I think has tremendous impact on the industry.
And I think what you're saying there too relates back to Larry's comment. That, you could have great AI generated content that maybe even potentially creates a conversation with somebody. And then you get on a call and you go, bleh,
Mm.
because you have nothing to say because your AI did it. And I think that's the concern that I have as well. And that's why I think it's more about teaching people how to use AI and giving them some tools to make it easier, but teaching them how to use AI in the right way to help them be more efficient as a human, but not losing their humanity is what
Right.
I keep coming back to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah. So Mark, what are key things if you have I mean, you talk to IBMers all the time, but if you had a CEO, you had a sales leader, or you had a sales rep that were listening to our conversation, what are you telling them right now? Additionally, we talked about profile, we talked about ways of using AI to help them do those things better. What are you telling them that we've got 1 month left of the year? What do you need to figure out between now and then to hit 2024 on the ground running hard?
Know your customer. Number one, really, really, really know them. Who's their competition? What are they trying to do? Look at their 10Ks, look at their annual reports, look at all the public information. Really become a student of the client that you're trying to serve. Because otherwise you show up with something for sale and my thing's got a handle and it holds 12 ounces and it's double walled stainless steel. And you know the feature, function, benefit, but you have no idea what the business problems are that the customer's trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
Second would be continue to develop your technical eminence and whatever it is you've got for sale. If it's screen printed things, be an expert in that. If it's artificial intelligence, be an expert in that. If it's a book and content, be an expert in that, so that you know the customer and your content as a subject matter expert, so you can show up and have authentic conversations with no PowerPoints, nothing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think if you're going to hit 2024 running, you've got to have a pipeline of conversations that you've had. You got to turn a suspect into a warm suspect, into a prospect, to have a meaningful face-to-face or whether it's virtual or conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I do some really deep analysis of our existing pipeline and understand whether you've got qualified deals or not. Because at the end of the day, this isn't the Olympics. And you can write that down. This is not the Olympics. You do not get a silver or a bronze medal in sales. You only are awarded the gold. There's only one position on the podium, right? And so in this particular case, the question is, do you have a really deep understanding of the customer and their pain and your value proposition and why it matters to them? Do you know what metrics or needles you're trying to move in order to help them achieve the business results that they're trying to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
And can you communicate that authentically and co-create a solution with them? And I think as you're getting into December and you're planning for a rapid start in 2024, you really have to know the customer, your product, why it matters. Are we connecting with the right people? And how are we going to bridge into meaningful conversations with those folks so that they know, like, and trust us? And then we can co-create solutions together.
All I could think of was Talladega Nights. If you're not first, you're last.
That's right.
That's all I could think of.
That's right.
And then I got distracted. That's all I could think of in my head.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, Daniel, I have a question for you from the technology and the AI side. The first thing Mark said was really know your customer.
Mm.
And I would have said even 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and Carson, Tom, and I talk about this on our other show. There's no excuse for not knowing your customer, for not knowing what their needs are, what they're going through, what their market conditions are, because then we had Google, right? And we have LinkedIn for research purposes. Now with AI, how would you take, so Daniel, let's say one of Mark's IBMers came to you and said, Mark told me I need to know everything I can about this customer before I do my first call with them, which is in 3 days or a week. How would you coach them on leveraging AI to help them prepare?
Wow. I would say someone coming, I would think, I've never been part of a company as big as IBM, but I
Well,
would
and
think they could have
really,
some of that.
it doesn't. I don't think that matters,
No,
right?
no,
This is a sales guy preparing for.
right, right. But I mean, we've talked with some smaller companies than IBM, and and you might ask the question, what's your ICP? And most are going to know what that term is, but many don't know the answer to that question. You know, what are you selling, or who are you selling to? Whom are you selling to? So I think that AI can definitely help with that if you don't have a clear understanding on it, by putting your offer into an assistant or a company AIQ, we could say. So, putting in what your company does, your features, all of those things, and then asking AI for that. Give me give me 5 examples of a good ICP for me, and you could dig further into each of those in preparing for how you could sell to them specifically. So it's great for, especially for those that don't even know kind of where to start, whom they're selling to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would think too, I mean, with AI, we could go in and Mark, I'd love to hear what you think about this is, we can go into AI, especially if your customer's publicly traded. I mean, you can go into AI and say, hey, I've got a meeting with them. Can you tell me what's most relevant and going on within this company and their industry over the last 3 years? What are the top 3 things that I should know about that they're going through, that they're dealing with? I mean, there's a lot of different ways that we just ask the question. And when we look at AI as our assistant, like, we can just ask them questions and say, give me some information. What do you think, Mark? How would you do that?
We leverage a variety of sources. We've got a couple of customers around the world, and so we've got a lot of data on a lot of firms and what their business initiatives are. And we've got a lot of dedicated teams that spend their life inside of a single account. I spent 10 years inside of one of our largest banks inside of the United States. We've got customer intent when somebody comes to one of our websites, and we know who came in, when they came in, what they looked at, what kind of documents they downloaded. So we know what customer interest is. And so, we've got some advantages there. But let me take this just a little bit of the different spin in terms of how to leverage some AI as we wrap up this call. I've had a situation where somebody wants to sell an AI solution into an industry. And let's just pick a bank for a minute. It's really easy to come back and say, what are the 15 major departments inside of this bank? Mortgage, home equity, capital markets, credit cards, student loans, car loans, retail bank, wholesale bank, and whatever. All right, so there's the 10. Great. What are the major things that the wholesale bank does? And an AI system will come back and say, well, it does this, 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 and this. Then I ask the next question: how would artificial intelligence potentially help that particular department? What are the use cases? How could we apply that? And it's going to come back with a whole bunch of ideas. Well, it could be used in interest rate arbitrage. It could be used in. And now what I'm trying to help teams think about is, how would I sell in an artificial intelligence center of excellence in one of the world's largest institutions? And what are the use cases for 5 different departments? Because I can't go in with my one-trick pony. I've got to talk to them about how our solutions could help them in all of these domains. And I show up with eminence in their business, with business case examples. And I leveraged AI to help me think about all that stuff. Now, I've got to put my words behind it when we talk. How is it that artificial intelligence, and in this case, Watson X, would help with interest rate arbitrage? I want to bring them something they haven't thought about, something they don't know, and have them see us add value. So we got to think about AI in a lot of dimensions. And I think it can help sellers think about sales strategy and the kind of conversations they ought to have to move the needle, especially with C-level executives.
Yeah, Mark, that was a great answer. And I think on there too, Tom's comment about, I think AI is an interesting side effect, which is helping a business getting more clarity on their ICP, business goals and positioning. I think that, like, what I heard you say, Mark, and what Tom's comment, I think, is really getting at, we need to pause and really think about how we can use AI better. Like, I think there's a lot of focus right now on inputs and outputs, and the outputs have been bad, right? In our world, I need a social post on this, and it comes out and go, well, that doesn't sound like me at all. I will never use it. True. But thinking about how you use AI, and we could get into the technical side of it. It's about directives and prompts, but let's not go there. But just what I heard you say, Mark, was let's go to AI and ask it questions. Daniel, what you said earlier about preparing for your talk, which your introvert was scared to death of speaking at an event, but you went there and said, hey, what are the 10 questions that you should ask me if I was asked to go give a talk on this? And you kind of reverse engineered your own content. Right. And that's what I heard you say too, Mark. It's like you're reverse engineering the information that's out there to prepare me and put me in a position. And I'm trying to simplify that down, but I'm not sure if I'm doing it. But I think just getting, if you're out there listening to this and you're scared of the output that's coming from AI, change the way you're thinking about it. What can you ask AI that would then bring back to you clarity or information or a new way of thinking about approaching your client? Just simply like, let me go this and say, my company is X. I have a conversation with company Y. I'm speaking to these 3 people. These are their titles. How would you prepare me to go have that meeting? And see what it says. And just let it kind of guide and lead you that way. I mean, that's the way, you guys know me. I like to distill and clarify. But that's what I kind of heard both of you say from a sales perspective and a tech perspective. Would that be a fair way of kind of summarizing what we talked about?
I think so. I do think though, and we don't have time to get into it right now, but the big question we've had with some of our beta users is someone going to see my documents? Are they going to see my knowledge base? Are they going to see my proposals if I upload them into your system? And the same with ChatGPT. It's like, if you're giving all this information, and there's been breaches for this, so it's not a boogeyman thing. It's legitimate. So I think that's the fear. And I was going to create a post on that next week, but I think we could go into that more. But that is one of those fears I think a lot of people have with this idea of feeding all of your company information, and then China's going to have access to it, or competitor, or whoever else. So that's something to think about. And we're going to talk about that more for sure.
If I'm going to make a plug for IBM,
for sure.
That's one of the things that really differentiates us, because there's all kinds of public AI, large language models, right? Where all kinds of content has been scraped, and you don't know whether you can ethically use it. You don't know what the source is. You don't know whether it has a bias. And so the work we do is scaling those kinds of AI applications at a corporate level in healthcare and finance and retail and banking and so on. And it's your data on your system in your private area behind your firewall. And we train on the client's data and add that to existing IBM large language models that we have verification of how it was gathered. And when you take very highly qualified ethical data that we have, and you add your proprietary data in a proprietary repository to ask your own questions, then you know that you can, it's transparent about where the data came from. But now you've got a secure, fair, ethical way to do the work you need to do. And so there's
cool.
Some things I'm particularly proud of in terms of the way we're approaching things.
Yeah, I think that secure area is so important. Having a private space to leverage the AI.
I think IBM's a great startup. It's a really good startup.
Yeah. For those of you that have not used AI or played with ChatGPT, there's free ones out there. You can get to it through Bing and a number of other places. But start with your about section in your LinkedIn profile. So here's my coaching to you. Paragraph 1 ought to be, here's how you serve the client. Okay, why do you bring value? Paragraph 2 is a little bit about you and your eminence. Paragraph 3 is a little bit about you personally. Hey, I love to cook. I love to barbecue. Brandon's a world-class surfer on 100-foot waves. Put something in there so they can connect with you personally. And then a call to action. How can they contact you? Write your very, very best work, and then go to ChatGPT and say, I'd love to have you make this more professional, more compelling. I get rid of the puffery and all the adjectives. I don't want any abbreviations. Make this better and see what happens. And then if you really want to have fun, say, I'm a Harley Davidson motorcycle rider. Make it sound like a biker wrote it. And it'll come back and say, hey, dude, kickstands up. It's absolutely hilarious. But you will start to learn how to leverage AI tools and provide prompts. And keep in mind that these things all stay in context. So it's Brandon and Daniel have all talked about having a conversation. You can, when it provides results, you don't have to start over again. You can say, well, can you make that more professional? Can you make it shorter? Put it in first person. And pretty soon you'll iterate on it just like you would versions of any other document you've authored until you get something that sounds like you, looks like you, and you're particularly proud of. And then replace your about section. Start there. It's a great place to practice.
That's awesome, Mark. Mark, if anybody's listening and they're like, Mark, I want your help in doing that, where's the best place for them to find you?
Oh, man, LinkedIn. I'd hope that you would connect and follow and ring the bell. There's 8 more sessions that are coming up that I'm going to post on how to improve your LinkedIn profile, how to show up authentically. I think they're of value. There's 5 of them out there right now, starting with a banner and your professional picture, your headline. We're just getting started in the about section. I published a 32-page rubric on how to evaluate your LinkedIn profile so that you can determine where am I not so good and where are opportunities for improvement. It's out there. You can download it, print it, and more to come.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Mark. And for everybody, look, we put on this show, Daniel and I, because we wanted to do something really what we think is very, very powerful for individuals and teams with Fist Bump. And so this is all sponsored by our company, Fist Bump. You can go to getfistbumps.com if you're interested in learning more. And what we're building there is a 2-tier AI system to help empower people to more effectively, more efficiently create content about the company and on brand and on message without losing that individualized personal expression, which is really, really important. So that's where our 2-tier feed the AI about the company, the ICP, about messaging, but then really allow the individual to have a conversation and train their personal bot, as Daniel called it, his Daniel bot, and really train it so it knows your word choice, it knows your tone, it knows your style, it knows your role in the company. And as that gets trained and you come in the morning and you go, you know what, I got to create a LinkedIn post today, or I need to send an email today. You can actually just feed it a little bit of information, press some buttons, slide a few levers, and it starts kicking out content for you that really, really sounds like you. And that's the ultimate goal, is be more efficient without losing our humanity. So there's our plug as well. Mark, thank you so much for joining us again. I really appreciate it and love seeing your face on my computer and having conversations with you.
Well, hopefully we added a little value. It's I've got a passion for people and for companies to deliver results and have some fun doing it. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. We're going to go get in trouble with Noor now for going 15 minutes over. So
I know. Yeah, Daniel, you want to wrap us up?
Listen to it on 1.5 speed, right?
That's it.
Exactly. Well, thank you all so much, everyone that joined. We always appreciate the comments, and we will see you next week.
Bye everybody.
Bye for now. Carpe diem.